now.
Perfect. Well, thank you for all of that, Jennifer, and providing all that background on the vision and information about Sage HRMS Payroll, the advantages that we bring with that, and additional offerings that we bring to clients to help create that stickiness and provide the services that are needed out there. As you talked about in some of the vision with Sage HRMS, what you should see in front of you right now is the Sage HRMS 2012 solution. Again, just as a reminder of what was talked about previously, the Sage HRMS is a complete end-to-end employee management solution. So not only payroll, but ability to manage the entire employee lifecycle from recruitment all the way to retirement. But what we're focusing our discussion today on is primarily just the payroll aspect of that. So regardless of if an organization is 50 employees, 150 employees, or 5,000 employees, they all have individuals that they need to pay, whether they're employees or contractors, and we need to be able to provide the features to remit those funds to the employees out there. So I wanted to quickly walk through some of the features of the Sage HRMS Payroll. So I'm going to close my welcome screen, and we're actually going to go into an actual employee record here. So when we're viewing an employee's information, it brings up our employee find screen where we can filter and search through all of our active, terminated, leave of absence, all of the employees or contractors that we're managing out there. We can find and filter this information or just select an employee from the list itself. I'm going to go right into the payroll tab of the employee's record and just quickly go through some of the information that we're tracking from an employee's perspective, whether it's the demographics information or specific information that we're paying them based on. So you'll see the variety of tabs of information that we're managing here, just our general demographics with the first name, last name, address, birth date, hire date information. We're also tracking all of the employees' pay information in here as well. So the frequency of that pay, whether they're a part-time, and expected hours that we expected them to be working during a period. So essentially in this screen, we're actually setting up the template for an employee or what we expect their payroll to look like. So you'll see the various earnings and deductions listed down below that with the rates and the expected hours, those type of areas. Again, the expected template or what we expect to see on a payroll-by-payroll basis for this employee with earnings and those deductions there. You'll also see the various taxes that are applicable for this employee, so we'll be able to apply the federal, state, and local taxes. And anything that is applicable. Again, we are managing all of those tax rates and tables and providing quarterly updates to keep them in compliance with those withholding and legislation rules out there. We also have for the employee delivered direct deposit. So as Jennifer talked about with being able to provide direct deposit and check payments to the employee or using the Sage Payroll Pay Card services to provide direct deposit for all employees across the board. With the earnings and deductions that we've talked about and the direct deposits that we're looking at right now, we do provide the ability for employers to use an unlimited number of earnings deductions and direct deposit accounts for employees. So here we could have one or multiple direct deposit accounts set up for an employee. We can rank those direct deposit accounts and also prioritize them as far as what funds go to what account, whether those are based on flat amounts or percentages. We also facilitate management of garnishment deductions or child support deductions within Sage HRMS Payroll and allow employers to set those up and electronically remit those payments as is being mandated in a lot of cases now today. So you will be able as an employer to set up all of your orders and your cases with all of that information and remit these payments compliantly electronically to those specific authorities out there. Okay. So maintaining all of this employee information, whether it's their basic demographic information that we saw on the first tab, all of their earnings deductions, rates, and rules that are associated with that, and again, providing an unlimited number of earnings and deductions that can be managed in here. Of course, there's tax and tax compliance associated with that, the direct deposit compliance and an unlimited number of those, and of course, garnishment compliance and remittance as well, being able to manage all of that information for the employees within here. Of course, as part of this, we can also take some quick views into the employee's activity before actually even getting into processing payroll or running reports. So you can see, we can see the activity for an employee viewing their month-to-date, quarter-to-date, and year-to-date information. We can see what actual checks have been issued to the employees, the numbers, the dates, and the amounts, and even pull up an actual copy of that check and print additional copies off, looking at the very specific detailed information. information. And lastly, we're performing the accruals within the payroll process as well. So we do offer the ability to manage paid time off and accruals associated with that. So they can set up their accruals for vacation and sick times, and we can perform those accruals as part of the payroll process and view those balances and what was accrued. Moving outside the employee's information itself, I wanted to jump over quickly to the actual payroll process and just walk you through quickly the steps that are involved with processing a payroll. Now, with payroll standalone, we do not have the open payroll process. That is something that comes along with the HR side and helps ensure that we have the latest and greatest employee information. So with a standalone payroll solution with Sage HRMS Payroll, we would start with actually importing or bringing in our actual calculation information, whether that's time, gross wages, a commission amount, whatever information we need to bring in to actually calculate payroll. And we do that with importing timesheets or importing that information in. The next process is to actually distribute our earnings. So if we're doing any very specific allocations for employers of distributing their earnings, taxes, and deductions across the general ledger in a very specific format, we can set up those distribution templates to automatically do that by percentage or amount. Or we can base that distribution off the information that we're importing for calculating payroll. From there, we have our time cards that we utilize for employees. Again, you'll remember when we were talking about the employee setup and the employee information that we're maintaining in there, we said under the Pay tab that we were setting up the template that an employee will use or look like during a standard payroll process. So every payroll, we look for those earnings and those deductions and those very specific taxes to be used to calculate their payroll. If there are exceptions to that information, we do allow exception processing in here where we can come in and add one-off items for an employee. So maybe we need to add a one-off bonus for an employee or a one-time deduction for something that is being done out there, or adjust their taxes for this one specific payroll. So we can do off-cycle or out-of-the-ordinary type processing within the payroll process itself and manipulate that employee's very specific information. If an employer wanted to hand key in time for an employee, this would be an area where we would enter those hours worked for that specific pay period there. Once we have everything imported and our time cards adjusted as we needed, we then go through the process of actually calculating payroll. This is going to take everything from a gross to net standpoint within the payroll process, calculating our gross wages, doing all the deductions for taxes, deductions, benefits, those type of areas, and getting to a net standpoint or a net check. Once we calculate our payroll, we will run our balancing reports, and I'll pull up a balancing report here in just a second, and balance and view our information. We'll balance our gross wages, all of our deductions, and our net checks as well. If anything is out of balance with the payroll, we can go back to time cards, make our adjustments, and then recalculate payroll itself. We can actually do that process as many times as we like until the payroll is completely balanced and ready to be issued. You'll also notice as part of this process here going into the calculate that we don't have any trial runs or closings of the actual payroll period. So when it comes to quarter end and year end and just certain period ends within the organization, we do not require that you close a prior period before running another payroll. So there's no need to close the prior quarter. There's no need to close the prior year before running the next payroll. To give a very good example of that, we can actually run a 2013 payroll without closing and issuing our W-2s for 2012 as of yet, and can continue to make adjustments within that period. Once we calculate payroll, again, if we are using payroll to process our time off accruals, we can process those and accrue the hours associated with that in the rules, and then we will print and post our checks. Let me go ahead and calculate a payroll here. I'm going to do this for, let's say, we'll go through and we'll calculate our payroll. Again, this is taking everything from a gross to net standpoint here. Once we've calculated our payroll, we can then issue and print our checks. And we will print them for the date we just did. We can do all checks at a time. We can do our EFT direct deposit advices only, or just our paper checks that we're issuing. We can also issue checks from multiple bank accounts. So we'll select the bank account that we want to issue this payroll from, and then what level of detail that we want to show on the actual stub, and any messages that we want to put on there as well. We'll print and post those checks. Gives you a listing of every check that's going to be issued there, the amounts, and your starting check number. We'll then print those checks, and it'll issue a check number for each one of those and print them accordingly. And we'll actually view a copy of an actual payroll check here. So here's an actual copy of a payroll check that's being issued. This is being printed on a blank check stock, and with all of the pay stub detail down below that. And we could individually go through each check and review those if we wanted to. When we close that box, it'll ask us if we printed everything successfully. We can say no and rerun that process if something jammed in the printer or something in that case. Or we can say yes, and it will go through and post and update all of our information. Payroll has now been processed and posted to the system, and we're now ready to complete our process of actually issuing our electronic payments should we need to. Updating that information now. I had a big payroll run on this one. What it was just asking me to do there is whether or not I wanted to post these pay stubs to employee self-service, which is another component of the Sage HRMS solution, and is not required for Sage HRMS Payroll standalone. Once we've issued and printed our checks, we're now ready to do our electronic files. Again, direct deposit is delivered with the Sage HRMS Payroll solution, so we will select whether we're doing our direct deposit or our child support file, the date we want to do that for, and then simply process and export that file, transmitting it to the bank so our electronic payments can be made for all of those direct deposits there. So those are the steps involved with actually processing the payroll. Of course, we want to deliver all the reports and accessibility to information within there as well. So we can actually look at our payroll reports in here. Again, transaction reports, some of the items we may want to run are an actual payroll register or a pre-check payroll register to actually balance our information. So we can select those reports, what dates we want to run that for, and actually view that report and balance our information here. So this is a detailed version of the payroll check register, providing employee by employee all of the check information. So our total earnings, our deductions, our employer contributions and taxes, and the GL account that those are being issued to. At the very end of this report will be our summary information, providing a complete summary of all wages, all deductions and taxes, and our net checks and numbers that have been issued, along with hours worked, whether they're overtime or shift differential. So we utilize these reports and many others to balance that information in there. The second part of actually processing the payroll is actually issuing our taxes and tax remittance as well. And as Jennifer talked about throughout the presentation, we utilize and partner with Atrix to actually provide those services. All of that is built into and built within the solution of Sage HRMS. So we can come under our government reports, and you can view all of our information in here, such as our 941s for our federal tax filing. So we can select what 941 we want to file, and it will bring all of that information up here on screen for us to review and see our actually filing information. We can actually print a paper copy of this 941 and file it ourselves, or through this print, utilize Atrix to electronically file that on our behalf, and also our remittances to the government agency. So you'll see all of your 941s out here. Your W-2s are out here as well, and all of your state filings for any states that are applicable out there, and what forms need to be filed. All of that is maintained and updated and complete compliance assurance in our partnership with Atrix there. So that's a lot of our reports and our government filing and the payroll process and information that we're tracking itself. The last area I wanted to touch on real quick was the Sage source as well. Oh, looks like I timed out there. Let me log on again. So Sage Source is a free employee benefits portal as part of their Sage Business Care that organizations can utilize to provide ability to connect work and social life together. So we're providing the ability to provide online access to pay stubs. So you'll see all of your pay stubs online here as well that employees can access, view, and print copies. Company announcements that they can post for employees out there as well. And then some other areas and advantages for employees in the area of supplemental benefits that they can take advantage of. This is a key area for smaller employers that do not have access to benefit plans as larger employers do. So they can offer these supplemental plans that employees can take advantage of. Also the social aspects of it, so we can do things like Google access. We can do Google searches, direction maps, news applications that they can view in here, and other savings areas such as smart savings where they can take advantages of additional discounts out there. Okay, so that's from a very high level overview, is an overview of what we manage as far as employee information, the payroll process itself, how we integrate with tax filings, and then the Sage Source solution. Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you right now, and any